Welcome to Widnes Rugby Chat episode 2 of 2026. We record this after Widnes's 44-12 defeat to London Broncos that opened the championship season and ahead of the Challenge Cup game away at Thatto Heath Crusaders. I'm James Gordon. I'm joined as ever by Mike Parsons, and we'll start, Mike, with the London game. Now, without revealing too much any personal text messages, I was quite worried for you when you texted me when you sent me a message. I don't know if it was Sunday night. You seemed a lot more depressed than I usually am. So tell me your thoughts on the match before I give you mine.
I think from my perspective, James, the two things that I come away from the Warrington friendly with was our inability to defend our try line. That was definitely one. I think every time Warrington had the ball in good ball areas, they carved us open. Obviously, you're playing a Super League team and, going down to London, you are facing a similar set of circumstances, albeit, London's pre-season and preparation has been broken up because they're a brand new team. And also the attacking flair that we had against Warrington, I didn't see much of it. You move into the London game with them 2 points in mind, and I actually thought ball in hand, we really looked dangerous, and it was my personal opinion of the London game was more frustration out of anything else, because I just don't think we give ourselves a chance of exploiting any pressure on London, because we put 10-15 minutes together and we really looked good ball in hand. I thought Jordan Abdull looked really dangerous. I think, his last tackle kicks, we kind of seen what we've been missing the last few years. Maria didn't want anything to do with them, and I don't think many fullbacks will in the championship. But having said that, for how good we was going forward, I thought the one-on-one defence was terrible. I really did. I thought, Sam Wilde once or twice, Jack Owens once or twice, Ryan Ince missed one, Joe Lyons missed one, Watson threw off a scrum base off one pass, a tap penalty, just barging over two of our props. I was really frustrated, because I just thought if we'd have shown a little bit more grit and steel in defence, I do believe we could have put a bit of pressure on London, and we could have really, pushed them all the way. I wasn't too disappointed with the defeat. It was more the defensive display and the way that London scored tries. I think the other thing I picked up from the game, I think we can see, can't we, that the game is going to be played a hell of a lot quicker, isn't it, this season? And it's going to suit, obviously, the favourites going into games. You're going to assume that it's going to favour that team more. I think, when you're an underdog, you sometimes try and slow the game down to frustrate the opposition. And I don't think the referees are going to give teams much of a chance of doing that. But I think in terms of moving forward into the Thatto Heath game, I think now Widnes have got to flip that. I think the defence has to improve, but we've got to play that quick ruck speed game now and use that in our favour, because we should be the fitter team. We've got Matty Forzard, and I'd like to see moving forward into the season, in my belief, we look so much better as a team when Johnson drops to that 13 role. I thought Jordan Johnson was brilliant on Sunday, as was Matty Forzard, and I think them two on the field are really important for Widnes, and I would like us to start with more of a middle, that loose forward, and then when Johnson drops there, he's your ball playing loose forward, and then Matty Forzard's on, and you play with them with the majority of the game, because not only does that help you in attack, I think also, if you lose a middle, you're kind of playing with five anyway, so you've got that extra prop rotation to go back into if you need to. But I think defence aside, I think, it was what was probably expected. And I think now, witness attention needs to turn to being as professional as possible against Thatto Heath. And then off that, I think you've got a really important first home game against North Wales Crusaders in front of your home fans, because I think looking down the fixtures, of the next 8 games, you've got Doncaster away, you've got Barrow away, you've got Oldham in there. So there's some difficult fixtures coming up as well.
Yeah, I'm just going back to the London game. I don't know how many people listened to the BBC Radio Merseyside coverage because, of course, the stream was free. I might have to head to the Dole queue before long, Mike. If nobody will be listening to BBC. I was worried for Widnes after I think about 18 or 19 minutes because I thought Widnes looked really tired. They seemed to be really slow getting back to the turn. London I don't think London had had more of the ball and more of the territory, but I didn't feel like you felt like they had plenty of gears in them at that point. But to be fair to Widnes, they were the better team in that second half of the first half, and they did really well to dig in. And I think a big part of that was Jordan Abdull's kicking game. I think we'll talk a little bit about him in a minute, but I actually said this to Allan after the game. The distance and the height of his kicks meant that even though Widnes weren't really getting out their own end with the ball, he was at least turning them over, and you could see Widnes's energy when they got, when the fullback was only getting the ball in his 20, it was giving Widnes energy to get up there, and that really helped them swing it back in the favour. And then the couple of times they got up to the try line, they scored. They was unlucky with the bounce that Mike Butt nearly got onto off the awkward bounce, again off an Abdull kick. I think the only one time, apart from when he failed to kick in touch, the only one time I was a little disappointed with an Abdull kick was, I think his very first one, Murray wasn't interested. It was only like a routine kick into midfield, and he wasn't interested at all. And but Widnes had got a bit forward, and they went for a shallowish kick on the left. I would have liked to have seen him really put one up there, because that would have troubled the fullback. But I think for that from where I thought Widnes were after 17, 18 minutes, where I thought they looked like they were on their feet, they did really well to get back. And it was quite unfortunate that they were 16-12 down at half-time. There was a bit of it was a high tackle after they put on a bit of pressure. I thought that Hawkins, he's a very good player. I think he'll be the best, probably be the best player in the league. I think that just killed them a little bit. If they'd gone in at 12-all, I think they deserved to go in at 12-all, and it might have just changed the psychology of things.
I think the even bigger frustration, James, was 12-12, but we had that penalty to touch and miss touch, and then that'd been our attacking set as well. And instead, you're behind your own posts.
But they got, but I mean that was early on in the match, wasn't it? That was much earlier on in the match. They'd sort of recovered from that to get back where they were, and then I think the injury to Matt Fleming didn't help. That disrupted them. We'll play the interview with Allan Coleman very shortly in this episode, and I asked him about that because it took Widnes a good 5 or 6 tackles to get that sorted, and given it seemed that it was they'd already planned for it to happen, it seems a bit strange that it hadn't been sorted quicker. Now, I'm not, I think that was probably coincidental to what went on, but Widnes just seemed to lose. They lost their way, and for no real reason, seemed to lose a bit of confidence. The 2 tries that killed the game were absolute killers. The offload, the offload was just like, you could see it happening. They'd stopped it. I think Jack Bibby had wrapped him up, and you could still see he was trying to be like, right, stop him, and it was like, yep, stopped him again, and he still managed to get it away. And then the one where beating it off the tap, just that was criminal, that one. And I think I said on Twitter, Bienek, I thought he was he changed the game in. And it's ironic that of all the signings they've made, it was one of the lads that they had last year, and he's just a rough and tumble championship prop. He was the one that made that difference. Because I actually thought Widnes, I know you were saying about the defence, but I thought Widnes defended really well in the middle. I thought the props tackled well. They handled their pack all right. I thought Widnes defended really well in the middle. But them two tries, and once they'd got, because they had that one just before half time, once they got to 28-12 or whatever it was, the game was well beyond Widnes at that point. And then after 62 minutes, London were going at a point a minute in the second half, and it could have got really ugly. And I'm glad for Widnes. I think 44-12 probably was a bit harsh on Widnes in the grand scheme of how the game was. But after 62 minutes, you were looking at, it could have been 60. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah, I think I was surprised when you messaged me, actually. I was surprised when you messaged me. I think I was on my train home. Obviously, you sit with the fans, so you probably get a bit more of a feel for how fans are feeling. I actually was a bit surprised at how negative people were after the game. And on social media and stuff, there was a lot of, and don't get me wrong, I don't disagree with some comments about some players and maybe or about maybe the squad. You know, I don't disagree with that, but I was really surprised at how negative quite a few people were.
I think where my negativity comes, James, is if you're defending one-on-one like that at your try line, you're going to struggle against anybody. And some of the manner of them tries, and don't get me wrong, there's obviously the element of, you know, you're playing a full-time team, some real big athletes, and they're taking the juice out of you in the middle, and the result of it is them one-on-one missed tackles. But we've had two games now where, you know, Warrington have put 50 on you and you didn't look like showing any resistance in defence. And then again, the one-on-one situations, we didn't look like we was ever really going to defend our line with any confidence. I do agree. There was some good work in the middle of the park, but ultimately, to build pressure in this league, you know, you've got to show some defensive resistance, and, you know, let's have it right. You know, we was the fourth lowest scorers last year as well, so there's no real signs that you can show that posting points. So, yeah, I think ultimately, mate, you know, you've conceded nearly 100 points in 2 games, so I think that's where fans' frustrations come from. But I think ultimately, mate, you know, you got this Thatto Heath game now in the middle, and then kind of forget everything now and like start afresh of round 2 against North Wales Crusaders, and I think that game it'll give us a lot more of an indication of where Widnes are as a team. And I think going back to, obviously, you know, the conversations we had on Sunday night, I think sometimes things are a bit more rawer when a game has just happened, rather than taking a day or two, you know, listening to post-match interviews, looking back at the tries and thinking about it yourself, and of course listening to other people's opinions as well. But I'm glad you picked out Hawkins, because I for all the talk of the Papua New Guineans and the you know, obviously Jason Demetrio and you know, Regan Campbell-Gillard, of course, I thought he was outstanding. Where if you've got a pick of the most influential player in any team this year, I don't think you go far wrong by naming him.
Yeah, I thought they actually didn't get him the ball enough. They just didn't get him the ball enough in the first half. I'm not sure about the hooker situation. I don't know whether they've got another hooker somewhere. And I know Havili, you know, he's played 20 odd games for Tonga. He wears the number 13 shirt because he is a ball player, but he's not for me like he's not a full-time hooker, if you know what I mean. And, like, you know, and that was a weak spot, and that's why I thought Fozzard changed the game a little bit for Widnes, because they couldn't cope with what he brought. I actually thought Liam, you know, and Liam Bent's got his limitations, obviously, but I think what Liam Bent did really well is he played the ball really quickly. And that really helped Widnes get on the front foot. When he came on, he just started taking the ball in, got quick play the balls, and obviously Mike Forsad was going off the back of that. Going back to what you were saying, I think the worry is, like you say, your opinions or you consider things a little different when you have conversations and when you hear what other people think. One of the worrying things, I guess, is that you look at the Widnes teams over the last couple of years. They have been decent defensively and on the line, and that's actually been one of the positives. So if they've not got that, all of a sudden you're thinking, well, where are they going to pull something else from? So we'll see. Anyway, let's have a break from me and Mike, and let's hear what Allan Coleman had to say. I caught up with him straight after the full-time hooter at Wimbledon on Sunday. Allan Coleman, 44-12 defeat to London Broncos on the opening day of the season. How did you assess the overall game?
Game of two halves. I thought first 10 minutes of the first half, we struggled with everything what they were doing, the carries, the backline carries. Both wingers, both centres, both back rows coming out of yardage were just momentum and just powerful. But, we dealt with it. We dealt with it until they got opportunities, and then they pulled the trigger and got one, and then got another. And then you think, wow, is it going to be this tough all the time? And then I just think we find our rhythm a little bit. I thought Jordan got into the game more. We hadn't had a good ball opportunity. We got a good ball opportunity and scored. So then straight away confidence is, we'll get opportunities, we'll score. And we did it again. And I just thought we grew in confidence, and you don't want the hooter to come at that stage of the game. And I thought their discipline was poor at times, and you get a couple of opportunities, and we did do. But then second half, we spoke in half time. The start's massive. We've got to be switched on, and I thought obviously that was the focus point. The first 15 minutes, and they nailed it. I think they had 12 sets to our 3. But in that, disappointing for us is we don't give any 6 agains away. So we're being too nice with teams. Most teams will give it hang on and slow it down. And I get the game has to change, and they want it to change. But we can't be an honest group anymore. We've got to be ruthless, and we weren't ruthless enough.
We almost a bit disappointed to go in 16-12 down at half time, because I thought, if it had been 12 all at half time, that was probably a fair score. Did that try affect you at half time in what you said? And I didn't feel like the players when they came off looked too concerned they haven't conceded that try, but do you feel like that just had some sort of impact?
I think if I was their team, I'd be going, yeah, it's perfect now. It's perfect now. They realise we're winning, for one. Secondly, let's quicken everything up. Let's go back to that first 10-15 minutes of the first half. But when it's 12 all, they might be different. They might be a little bit more reserved, and let's take a nice steady approach for the first 10 minutes. But that was the story of the first half for us. I thought on both edges we will lose some one-on-one contact. Where I thought we dealt with middle area. I thought our middle channel was really good, and now we worked our up with no penalties against us, and they had a few. But we weren't sticking on our one-on-ones, and when they scored at the end, we were just loose on that one-on-one again. Same with first try. So, yeah, I think it should have been 12 all personally going in at half time, and that would have been a reflection, but it wasn't. And I think, like I said, the first 10 minutes kills us in that second half.
At the start of the second half, Matt Fleming broke down, had an injury, came off. There seemed to be a little bit of, obviously Jack Owens was right on the other side, wasn't there? There seemed to be a bit of a communication breakdown in getting someone at full-back. And it was probably a coincidence, that situation, but it almost felt like you lost your way for that 10-15 minutes after Fleming came off.
Yeah, we'd already spoke at half-time what was happening, so everyone was aware. Every player was aware what was happening. Max Roberts was aware, Morgan McWhirter was aware, and Jack Owens was aware. So they know when Flem's coming off. That's the call. So we react to it really coolly. But fortunate for us, they don't get anything from that when he comes off. But it just lost a bit of fluidity for us with Morgan McWhirter, because I thought we come on in the first half. He brought that energy from our carries, even though he weren't carrying all the time. He'd carry forward and play on back of it, and it lifted us, and they was on back foot. And then we put it back row, and we lose a little bit of energy at middle. And unfortunately for us, Our bench is different then because you've only got certain people, but then you flip it again. You put JJ back on, it lifts again. I thought he was brilliant today, Jordan. Personally, I thought Mike Fleming was as well. So we've been working hard with them two about how they approach the game, and we were insisting on Foz jumps every set, and I thought he did that and made good meters. But we've got the beauty of that now, where we can with Lewis Hall getting a knock on training on Thursday, we can afford to go with 3 or 4 out and out middles and use Jordan as a ball playing 13 if Nick's not in the field.
Well, what's the injury with Fleming?
He's just gone over on his foot. We were just doing a training drill and he's just pushed off and he's just gone over a bit, and he was just struggling a bit, and it's just pointless risking it. It's week 1 and it's just pointless. But he'd have played this week 100%.
And probably the last thing you need in your situation is there being any movement on. I know you've been saying you want to bring another full back in. Is there any movement on that?
No, I'll be honest with you. The target we thought we'd got he's gone. But there is another. So. We'll probably find out Monday if that's available. It's quality as well, so it's not as though we're panicking. There's a couple of options we've had, and they've all been good quality players. They're going to certainly bring some quality to this team. But without being disrespectful to Thatto Heath, whoever we bring in won't play next week. Nathan Conlon will play next week. So, we just need to nail it. We need to get it right. Who's coming in?
Going back to the game. You mentioned Morgan McWhirter there, you lost his energy in the middle, but I actually thought he had a really good game in the back row and showed maybe that might be an option for you.
That's what I mean. So he's like, his energy brings everything to us, but then because we moved in, we looked flat in the middle then, so it was difficult. Because I think we had on at the time Jack Bibby, Liam Bent and Jay Chapelay, because we were changing the round. They're great middles, but they're all ball carrying middles where Morgan's like quite energy. He bounces on his feet, everything lifts forward, like Jordan Johnson does when he's there. So we lost that, and then just because of that, they have all the momentum, they have all the balls. So desperately, then you're just on the back foot.
The tackle of Mike Butt in the first half from Regan Campbell-Gillard, how did you see that?
Well, it's eye contact. So I'm really disappointed, not in the officials, because I thought she did a tremendous job in the game, and the rucks. She told us what she wanted the rucks, and she refereed the rucks as she was. So I've no issues. I won't moan about it. The only disappointing thing is that I think there were 3 late hits in the game on ours. We didn't do 1 late hit. 3 late hits, 3 contact, which was high, and I felt as though he was always in control of the game. I thought Campbell-Gillard ref the game personally. I really do. I won't go away from that. And I just feel as though then, if you're giving a high shot, and it was clear it was contact high, you've got to set your precedents early doors, and I don't think they did. And you look at the penalty count and said at half time, I said to the referee, it's 6-1 against. So we were 6 in our favour. Please don't punish us for being a well-disciplined team. And I just thought it was, I'll be honest with you, for that kind of game, you need to make a big decision at times, and I just don't think it was.
Were you a little disappointed of some of the errors that led to tries in the end? I mean, you touched upon it a little bit. 2 or 3 tackles falling off, that maybe not the second chance tackle didn't get made. And I suppose if any team's going to beat London this year, they're probably going to have to be error-free.
So our game plan was error-free, keep the ball in play. So play them at high energy, because once you start asking questions and set for set, they have to work harder. If you give them the ball, you don't keep the ball in play, everything's on their terms. So we spoke about being hours-free, and then I think the first half we did 3 hours and scored 3 tries. You don't do 3 hours, Jordan didn't find touch. So we've gone from a good opportunity where we've struggled to get out of yards, we get a penalty, we should have been 20, 30 metres off their line, set 6, and we spoke about having 2 opportunities in the first half and scored them both. It's flick of a coin, and it's key. But if you want any chance of being a full-time team, of being a part-time team, you have to be error-free. And our completion was really good. I might have dropped off at the end when we had a couple of knock-ons when Max and Morgan went through the line, but I think first half it was 89%. So you've got to be high on that, which was good. But errors, you can't afford to do errors.
You mentioned Jordan Abdull there. His kicking game was crucial, certainly in that first 10, 15 minutes where London really had your pen back. How did you feel he went overall?
Yeah, he's getting sharp. He'll get better. He'll get better and better. I've said it from day one. He's a threat. He's a smart cookie. He knows when he wants the ball and when he doesn't want the ball. And I think his kicking game showed today. I think their fullback was thinking, well, I don't want to go anywhere near these. So yeah, it's something we've not had, James, as you know, you've watched us enough. Our kicking game's not been good enough. But hopefully now that's improved and we start improving other local areas, everything will fall into place.
So moving on to this weekend, I did enjoy the slight confusion on the Widnes Facebook page when Deacon Connolly's loan to Salford was announced. There appeared to be a decent number of fans who couldn't quite grasp that we've got a player called Connolly and a player called Connell, and immediately
you really had it then.
well, yeah, and decided to just berate the club for allowing him out on loan or for contradicting what Allan had said in the interview. But to be clear, Nathan Connell is the player that Allan was talking about playing at fullback this week, and Deacon Connolly's gone out on loan to Salford. Now, before we move on to the Thatto Heath game, I do actually want to defend the club a little bit over that situation because I've seen a few negative comments about. We mentioned it a little bit last week about Toby Hughes. I've seen negative comments about Connolly being sent out on loan. Well, this time last year, we had a group of players in the squad that didn't play. They weren't loaned out, and eventually they were released. So this season, clearly there's a different. I think to be fair to Allan Coleman, I think he's come out and he has come out because he told me he came out and said that he feels like he's got more depth in his squad. So his players whereas last year them players were players 21, 22, 23, whatever. These players are players 24, 25, 26. And ultimately it is a positive compared to last year. I'm not making any judgments necessarily on the long-term success of it, but compared to last year, having these players in the squad and available if you need them and loaning them out is a much more positive situation than Widnes were in this time last year, where you had players that weren't playing anywhere and weren't likely to play anywhere. So I think it's harsh that the club are getting a bit of stick. I've seen some stuff about we shouldn't be loaning them out to rivals. I mean, if we're worried about, with all due respect to Salford at the moment, if we're worried about lending them players, we've got massive issues.
No, I totally agree, James. I mean, going back to the first bit, from my perspective, then what you call squad players at the moment, then projects, so to speak. I think looking at the Warrington game straight away, Nathan Connell looked busy, looked lively, really took his opportunity, was unlucky not to play against London. For me, in hindsight, was it probably best to leave it out, in terms of, him coming in cold round one against London, probably was the right decision, but he's definitely going to get his chance now. And I don't think he'll let anybody down at all. Deacon Connolly, again, against Warrington, his physique, he looked the part. He again really took his chance. At the end, when he was applauding the fans, looked like he really enjoyed himself. And Toby Hughes, got an assist with the cross-field kick. And I'm hearing really good things about Frank Sargent. And, it's a shame on the lad that he's had to start the season with an injury. But, there's some high hopes for him. So already that kind of crop of players seem to be more ready and prepared for rugby league than what the crop was from last year. And of course it helps, the squad is a little bit deeper as well. And I think fundamentally for these guys, when they're not quite getting in, it's absolutely the right thing to send them out on loan, make sure they're playing, getting experience, they're keeping match fit. So when we do need these players, or somebody's, put a couple of bad games together, that when they're ready to come into the team, they're fresh, ready to go. I think the way rugby league is structured at the moment, it's very difficult for players to be expected to drop into a team after not playing for 6 or 7 weeks and being expected to perform straight away in 80 minutes. My only concern about the situation is sending them to Salford, just because it is a little bit of a situation at the moment where it's lambs to the slaughter. And how good is that for their development? Would it be more beneficial sending them elsewhere? But then, of course, nobody else might be coming in for them players at the moment. So that's the place to go in at the moment.
Salford's clearly the best opportunity for them to play longer minutes, if you look at it like that. And well, it'd be interesting to see how Salford do. It's harsh to compare a bit. It's harsh to weigh them up against Oldham. It'd be interesting to see how they do against maybe some of the League One teams from last year. You know, they obviously. I spoke to Mike Grady recently, and you know, they'd only had 2 training sessions, you know, together. It's going to take them a while to get going, but I think they'll start becoming competitive against the lower end teams fairly quickly. But yeah, I think I think we touched a bit on it last week. My only concern is what loyalty the players have to Widnes, and what loyalty the players have to any club in the modern day. Really, is them players' loyalty to Widnes strong enough that if they go elsewhere, have a few decent games, that they're then going to think, well, yeah, I'll stay at Widnes next year. You know, if you go out, most of these players these days are on 1-year deals, or I mean, even if you're on a longer deal, by the time you get to the end of the first year, you can talk to the other club, to another club anyway. That's my only concern, but that's not. Widnes can't really do anything about that. They've not got any real option.
No, and as a club, you know, you can only field 17 players, and you know, if you run with a squad of 23, 24, supporters are usually calling you for not having enough depth. When you're running with 27, 28 and players aren't playing and going out on loan, people are questioning whether that's the right thing. So I think for the club, I do have a bit of sympathy for them in that sense, where it's kind of you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
So Connell's going to be the fullback. We assume, well, according to Allan Coleman this week, the noise about a new fullback has gone quiet. I'm told there was 2 potential options. One was the one that was mentioned last week. Then there was another one that had emerged that, if was successful, would have been heard about earlier this week. Well, not heard anything, so I'd assume that that's been unsuccessful as well. But the more you think about it, and I know losing Jake Mason was a massive blow, but I just wonder whether, when you've got Connell and you've already got Joe Edge and Jack Owens, and I just wonder whether it doesn't need to be pigeonholed that you need a fullback, and maybe it's a case of, well, actually, if you could spend that money on getting a better forward in, then maybe that's what, you know, and then you hang your hat on Connell doing well. I must admit, it's difficult to. I know people say he played in Super League for Salford last year, but I mean, come on, with all due respect to anyone who played Super League for Salford last season, they were sticking out. You know, the players that they were sticking out were from whoever was daft enough to want to play at some point. But I think if Connell's there, why not give him a run? You know, why not give him a few games to see? It's probably an ideal opportunity for him this week, because like you say, I mean, I do think it's a potential banana skin for Widnes, by the way, but you think he's going to get a lot of ball. He's probably going to be able to run quite a bit. It's a good opportunity for someone who wants to show what they can do.
100%, James. Obviously, with Matt Fleming leaving the field on Sunday, it kind of does open that, leaves the door ajar for him to go down and stake his claim. And look, I do agree. Potential banana skin, and you got to respect Thatto Heath. But at the same time, if we're being honest, you know, if there's a game you want to try something new and different, that is the perfect game for it. And let's hope he takes his opportunity. I personally do think he will. And regards to the body coming in, we put a poll out last week. You know, we have 4 players that was in it that was all viable options to play fullback, regardless of what people's opinions was and what they chose. You know, fullback wasn't foreign to any of them. And I could understand anybody's vote or point of view on any of the 4. Now, what that does, lady, is obviously if it's Nathan Connell, fair enough. Or the other three, if it's one of the other three, the other two will be still playing centre anyway. And you might be in a case in a couple of weeks' time where we get a couple of injuries in one position, and all of a sudden, you're looking at a different position, and you're a bit light. So I think it's hard. It's hard for the club. Look, if they had the time again, they probably wouldn't have been as open as what they have over the pursuit over a fullback, because it's backfired. And again, I feel for them, because you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't say anything, people get, cold feet that there's no talk and it's gone quiet. But at the same time, you've opened yourself up a bit and it's kind of blew up in your face. But if I was the club, I'd be looking at it now. And because fullback is a unique position, if we do bring in an out-and-out fullback, we already know you're down to your third, fourth possible choice of recruit. So it's like, well, A, that player coming in will know that, and B, what standard of that? What standard would they be? Is it the right fit? Are you trying to force it through because you've had these conversations through the media? And I think my advice to the club, especially with the Thatto Heath game coming up, the potential game of Leeds, just bide your time and make sure the right person comes in. And if that is in a different position and it strengthens you elsewhere in your squad, then do that. I just hope they don't panic.
Well, I think it's a difficult time to recruit, clearly, because the season's not even started for Super League yet. There won't be many players. The only players kicking around really are ones that were let down by Featherstone. Let's get it right. The only players really that are signing at the moment are the leftover players from Featherstone. I see Will Jubb's gone to Gould. I think that was one I seen today. So, like, any player that was intending to play professional or in the Championship this season would have already had a club lined up or been at a club. So, but because you've not had any games, you've not got anyone, no one's out of favour, no one's unhappy because they're not getting game time. So it's a difficult time. And like I say, I think there's a danger that you just take what you're offered, and someone offers you a few players and you think, oh yeah, I'll have him because he's good, whatever. And it's like, well, is that what you want, or would you rather just wait and get somebody that you want? I don't whether getting someone you want might not actually be possible these days, the way the market is. But the club have made it clear that the funds are there, so it's not a money problem or anything like that. And I actually don't. I'm fairly relaxed about it. I mean, I don't know. You might know better than me what. I know I've seen a few fan comments saying, "Oh, well, where's this signing?" sort of thing. But at the same time, I don't think it's as. I don't like it's not as critical as if say if Abdull went or got injured, or that would be, or if Matty Fozzard had gone or Jordan Johnson had gone, you would needed we need a replacement now, straight away. I don't necessarily feel like that's necessarily the case with the fullback for the reasons that we've mentioned. On the subject of Jordan Abdull, he was voted player of the match against London. And then there's been an article this week where he's opened up about his mental health and obviously the problems that he's had since his time at Hull. I actually saw this. I saw the art, and I know Josh really well, the journalist who wrote the article, and he shared it with me. I think it was before Christmas. And yeah, I mean, I think it goes without saying that regardless of what that interview that he's done now, some of the stuff that was getting posted has been out of order. Some of the comments and to be honest, it's taken a lot for me to not bite back at a few comments. Like I've seen people say things about him, and it's like, but I get that he's overweight. he'll know as much as anybody else that he's overweight, right? But it didn't stop him playing 80 minutes.
No.
He wasn't a liability. He kept witnessing the game. His kicking kept witnessing the game in the first half. And I don't think that you could apportion any blame for any of the tries to Jordan Abdull. I think I can only recall one tackle that I felt that he could have done better on. And it was towards the end of the game. He just got in an awkward position. And so I just think that people making comments about it, if he wasn't performing, or if he wasn't, if he was the worst player on the pitch, then maybe. I mean, even then, in this day and age, you've got to be careful what you say. But I could sort of get it if he was the worst player on the pitch, but he wasn't. He was Widnes' best player, and I don't know whether it's people who don't go to the game. They literally just see a picture and then are like, "Oh, hang on, why is he playing for Widnes? He must be rubbish. He's a disgrace. Whatever." Completely out of order. And I know that Allan Coleman's had to check in on him a couple of times. He's being fine, but I know that there's been worries that some of the comments, they didn't want it to get to him, and so I know that they've been checking in with him. And you shouldn't have to do, you shouldn't have to do that. But yeah, the article's out there if you want to go and read it. I don't know whether you've got anything to add, Mike.
No, I just echo what you say, James. I think I replied back at the article. I think from my perspective, the article, it was a refreshing article. It was a different angle that you don't always hear from journalists, and I think it was a real good interview and a bloody good lesson to people, to just remember where you are, and everybody's human beings at the end of the day. Them lads are, they're putting on a shirt, and if they get beat 8-0, they're human beings, and they've got families, and mental health is a real thing. Jordan, I said on this podcast, I think the signing is a bit of a risk, just because he's been out the game for so long. And obviously his injury record as well and the eye pitch. But, the two games that we've watched, right, Warrington ball in hand wasn't great, but he got my man of the match vote at London, James. I think people don't understand how dangerous them kicks are that he puts up. And let me tell you, he was the dominant halfback on Sunday, and I think me and you both know that if we get anywhere close to Jordan Abdull enjoying his rugby, doing what he does, smile on his face, and he manages to stay on that pitch, he will have a massive say on how successful Widnes are this year. And we are lucky to potentially have a player of that quality in our roster, because it doesn't often happen at part-time level.
Yeah, and like I say, it's one thing questioning his fitness and, him being out, but it's another thing name calling him and, comparing him to X, Y, and Z and, mocking up pictures of him with whatever. I mean, it's just that like I say, if you've got an opinion that he's not fit enough and shouldn't be playing, well, that's fine. That's fine. But when it gets to name calling and all the other stuff, it's just completely unnecessary. So looking ahead to the weekend then, Thatto Heath. So I can't remember where it was up to when we recorded the episode last week, but I'm glad they saw the light and put tickets on, because it's, as I said, everyone eventually listens to me, mate. They know what's good for them in the end, because they sold out the 1,200 tickets. What day was it that they sold out? Tuesday, something?
Yeah.
So
it's
going to be chaotic enough. Now, imagine if they'd not put the tickets on, and it was pay at your gate on Saturday. It would have been absolute carnage. But anyway, hopefully it goes okay. I've been told that there's a balcony that we're able to commentate on, but the weather forecast isn't too clever, so there might have to be some. They might have to fashion something, or I might have to take a big umbrella to protect the equipment.
If anybody's
Um,
getting bored of the action whilst at the game, just turn around and have a look at the commentary section. You might get a couple of laughs.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. So it's going to be an interesting one, but I think it's it's definitely banana skin. I think, but I don't really know what to expect from the game. Clearly, I've seen that they've brought this in so that the community clubs can get some money for having the games. Although I did see that the RFL had changed their mind. Usually, I think previously it was all the money went to the community club, whereas now they're still saying it's a 50-50 split. I've seen that I think Hunslet have give their 50% to Stanley, who they're playing. Now, I assume that's probably because the Super League clubs don't want to give 100% to the Championship clubs, and that's just filtered its way down. That is my cynical view on it, Mike. But I don't know what are you expecting.
I'm expecting, listen, they're going to be fired up. I think in terms of Thatto Heath, I won't go on too much about them, but they're a regular feature at the top of the NCL Premiership, and as a participant in the Challenge Cup, they always get to this stage. So obviously, they've got a lot of players in the ranks that have played academy level rugby. So yeah, they're going to be fired up and wanting to prove a point. Mackenzie Buckley's in their roster, who was obviously signed by Widnes last year, and I didn't rock up here. But I think in terms of the game, I think they'll have a real go, Thatto Heath. Obviously, Widnes will be on unfamiliar surroundings. It'll be that old-fashioned kind of bringing Widnes down to earth and wanting to rough them up, try and slow the ruck speed down. I don't think Widnes will have it all their own way. I think they'll have to battle through, and I think it'll be a case for Widnes is keep your heads and stay as professional as possible. And the game probably will break up as it goes along, and if you stay calm, patient, play to your points, you'll get through. It's whether you start panicking and if they can fester into your heads and the mentality. For me, I think that's the key thing for Widnes is, you've kind of got to flip that London game on its head now and be like, we're the pro team and we're going to dictate the tempo and we're not going to do anything different as to what we would do, on a Sunday afternoon in the Championship.
I know Allan's mentioned that Connell will play fullback, presumably to rest Matt Fleming, who I don't think it was anything serious what he did, just maybe turned an ankle, hurt his foot, something last week. Do you think he'll make many changes to the team?
I think you could see an extra middle going on there. So maybe Jack Houghton dropping into the team potentially. Whether that's in place of another middle or as an extra, personally, I'd go with the extra middle at loose forward. And as I spoke about earlier, having Johnson dropping to loose forward and then having Matty Fozzard coming on, I think that's when Widnes look at the best, in my opinion. But I think really, if I was Allan, we've not had an ideal start in terms of the opposition. Very difficult. Very difficult games. We need to put some form together. We need to put some confidence together, and we need to be as professional as possible. So for me, if I was in the dugout, which thankfully I'm not, I'd be going as strong as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose when you look at who didn't play last week, obviously Gilmore and Adam Lawton both coming back from injury. Anyway, you've only really got Danny Langtry and Lewis Hall are the only other two that didn't feature last weekend, other than maybe Kieran Taylor might get a run in the centres. Maybe I think ultimately, if Horton and Taylor are going to play, it's got to be this week, hasn't it? Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how it shapes up. But right, so Widnes away at Thatto Heath on Sunday, 1 p.m. So you'll have to get up early, Mike, on Sunday. 1 p.m. kickoff. A few other bits to go through before we let you go, just quickly. It was confirmed that Widnes will play Ghoul Vikings, the Clash of the Vikings, this season. So Widnes will now play Ghoul home and away. Those fixture dates haven't yet been confirmed, but at least you'll get the full value out of your season ticket. Bearing in mind that last year there was 12 home games, wasn't there? And there was the danger that you were going to go down to 11 as it was. And then the Salford game has been moved back to the Sunday. It was originally in the schedule as a Friday. I think that's largely because it was based upon the old Salford club always playing at home on a Friday. I think I've seen they've moved quite a few of their games from Fridays to Sundays. So that'll be Sunday, the 10th of May at 3 p.m. as well. So I think that's all we've got time for. If you get there early enough, make sure you save Mike a space along the railing because he likes to see. I'll be... I'm not sure what time I'll have to get there, but I'll be interested to see how it all pans out, shall we say. As always, thanks for listening. Get on the widnesrugby.com website or on the Widnes Rugby League fans Facebook page, and we'll see you next week.